This episode of the show is brought to you from the salesman.org HubSpot studio. Kim, welcome to the Salesman Podcast.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me.
You are more than welcome. We're going to dive into a topic today that's going to be incredibly timely for a lot of the people listening to the show. How to take someone who attends whether it's a live event, a live virtual event, or a live webinar, how to get them from just an email address and a name to perhaps marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead, and hopefully a customer. So let's not beat around the bush here. Let's just get super practical. Do you have a process for this at HubSpot? Is there a step-by-step process that you can share with us? Or I guess it might take longer than half an hour to get through, so we'll dive into chunks of it. But is there a process that you guys have created and found reliable to get someone from just email address to sales qualified lead, or hopefully a deal at the end of the day?
Yeah, well, great question, Will. And I would say this context is probably pretty important for anyone who is in sales. I would just say, the way that I think about it is I'm in a pretty fortunate position because in being in sales and partnerships at HubSpot, we have a fantastic marketing team who runs a lot of our event strategy for us. So I know sometimes in sales, you're not fortunate to have a marketing team that runs such a great event marketing playbook and event marketing process. So we can kind of go between both. I've lived in both worlds. But I would say the world that I've lived in for the last 10 years has been with a remarkable marketing team who helps us take those lead registrants through our process and through our flywheel. So happy to talk about that, but just wanted to make sure I was giving the right context that a marketing team does a lot of the work.
Sure. And because we touched on before the show in medical device sales, I did tons of in-person events, massive urology conferences, gynecology conferences, and there was no marketing team. I was the person chatting with surgeons, emailing them beforehand, getting them to come over to the booth so I don't look stupid in front of my sales manager. And I've actually had a few conversations during the day before we go out. So let's assume for the audience, to make things more simple here, that they've got a marketing team at least helping with a lot of this, if not, as you, in your own words, Kip, a remarkable marketing team doing the upfront kind of production, I guess, of the events themselves. So let's make that assumption. Let's briefly touch about the marketing, and then I want to talk about more on the handover and what happens after the fact, when perhaps we go from marketing qualified lead or MQL to a sales qualified lead or SQL. Let's touch on the marketing first. What happens when, what does that machine look like? What happens when I sign up for Grow, which is on next week? I'll be speaking at it, which we'll touch on towards the end of the show. What happens when I sign up to attend that event, and what does marketing do to, I guess, nurture the lead?
Sure. So prior to signing up for the event, Will, maybe it's important to say that for us, a landing page needs to be built. And in today, whatever platforms you use, a salesperson can build a landing page today. But let's, getting back to the example of us, our marketing team builds a landing page, really, creating content around what is the event, who are you, who's our audience, why should you attend, what you're going to get from it, and probably features a bunch of, great speakers that are going to pull you in, right? So often in sales, maybe we find ourselves in the speaker seat, and maybe marketing has, created the landing page for the event. So once you have a landing page or a web page for the event.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Let's just touch on this, because I think this is, in the events that we've done in the past, we've failed on this. I think you guys at HubSpot do it very well. Can you touch on as sales, we want qualified leads. We want someone, whether we're using BANT, whatever analogy we're using. Does the qualification process start at the landing page of attend if you are this person, if you have these problems that inadvertently we're going to solve, proactively we're going to solve in the event, but inadvertently we're going to solve with our product at the end of it? Is this whole process to narrow down and only attract the right people at the right time, at the right place? Is it thought out as thoroughly as that from the very beginning when we start with a landing page?
Yes, great question, Will. I would say, so much in sales, it's like cast a really wide net and then start to spend time with people who are qualified. What's really interesting, to your point, is in today's world, there's so many things going on, so many virtual events now. Yes, it starts with the landing page. It starts with the content. It starts with the question of who do you want to attend? Why do you want them to attend? What do you want them to leave with? And then how are you going to interact with them once the event is over? So that's kind of the framework we would follow on creating the landing page and creating the right content. Or to take a step back, thinking about, okay, what's the purpose of this event, right? The purpose of events obviously is to acquire customers. That's great, but not everyone coming to the event is going to be a customer. So that's just a little bit of a framework we use to think about setting up the landing page and not casting a super wide net, but casting a net that brings in more qualified at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know your experience in not necessarily HubSpot, but the wider selling marketplace. But over at salesman.org, we've got a training program. And one of the first questions I ask people when I go back and forth or do any coaching in there is, who is your customer? And 9 times out of 10, salespeople don't really know. They've got a rough idea of an avatar that's been flung at them by the sales manager or a marketing department, but getting super clear on who you want to speak to so that you've got criteria to qualify against, clearly super important. So we're making a few assumptions here. We're assuming we've got a great marketing team. They've created a great landing page and they've started this process of qualification for us. What happens then, I guess, when does someone become a lead versus just someone who's attended or going to attend the event?
Sure. So I'll answer this in the context of for us. So for us, a marketing qualified lead or an event qualified lead may be a registrant. That may be interesting, and I we've all been in a lot of different sales positions. That may be enough, right? That may be the world that I live in, as like I just have a registered qualified lead. A marketing qualified lead maybe would be post the event and you've had some email interactions with them. A sales qualified lead is essentially someone who's ready to say, I want to talk to sales. I signed up for a free trial. I signed up for your free product, or I want a demo, right? That's kind of what SQL means to us. And an SQL would only happen post-event when we've done some nurturing and we've done some personalization about the event to that individual. So I'm sure there's a lot for you to unpack there. I'll kind of stop there, but it depends if you want to just spend your time on the people who have registered, or if you want to go a little bit further along after they've had a chance to listen to the content of the event.
For context here, I think I know where you'll go with this, Kim, but
okay.
Is a sales qualified lead, perhaps someone who has put the hand up for a demo, whatever it is. Let me take that back. I'm trying to frame this up here with knowing the answer that you're going to give. I'll make it super obvious, right?
Okay.
Do you have a team of salespeople hounding people the day after the event? So, hey, you attended the event, blah, 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 let's jump on a demo. Or is there a period of nurture? Is there always, whether it's a day, week, a month, is that nurture always in place to save getting hounded by salespeople? I can't put it any other way other than that.
Yes, there's always nurturing. There's always a process, because we fundamentally believe that people don't want to be hounded by salespeople, right? That's kind of the content behind inbound selling. And, it's really about how we're selling, not why we're selling, right? So it's how we're engaging with people that matters to us. So no, we would not, create a list of those registered qualified leads and call them. But I would just say a caveat. I understand that sometimes in a sales role, you're not in a position where you have that marketing team to nurture those event attendees down. So
let me put you in that position then. Let's say we have a marketing team that can put on the event, can pass on a marketing qualified lead that is attended. They've clicked a few options within an email or two, within kind of a 7-day nurturing campaign after the fact. And then they've just been dumped onto sales. And sales now perhaps have 5,000 email addresses. It was a blowout event. They did really well. And the sales manager goes, hey, here's a list of people. Get calling, get emailing. What would you do to either further qualify these leads to, if you had to, it's clearly not ideal, but from a salesperson perspective, how would you begin to nurture them further even? What would you do if that was just dumped on your desk, Kim?
Yeah. So I would do the sales automation piece of it myself, right? So, there are a lot of tools out there today that you can, create nurturing and trigger in a CRM as a salesperson. So you can take that list and do your own sales nurturing. Or if you don't have a system or a CRM that you can do that, you can do that in an email. Just as simple as like, I saw you attended the event. One sales email that I have seen work really well in the past is when you just ask like maybe 3 questions, like, you attended this event. I'm sending you an email. I hope that's okay. Or you don't even maybe say, I hope that's okay, but like, I'm sending you an email. Option 1, would you like to talk to me about my product or service? Option 2, I'm ready to receive a demo. Option 3 is, I don't want to talk to you, please take me off your list. So then, and that response rate as a salesperson was always super high. So I just think, salespeople are really creative and can do a lot on their own, even if you don't have that marketing person. And even just like an option in an email sometimes helps you save time as a salesperson, because that's our most valuable thing, or, allows the prospect and the attendee of the event to maybe write back option C. I'm not interested.
For sure. So we do webinars over at salesman.org that all clearly lead towards our training product at the end of the day, right? It's very clear about all of this. And we have an automated email that goes out 24 hours after the webinar if people attended and watched like 40% of it, 50% of it. And the email is from my personal account. Hey, Will here. Did you enjoy the webinar? Question mark. Let me know if you got any questions. And we get like an 80% reply rate to that email of most people saying, I guess split of, I didn't quite get it all, I'll jump on the next one, or I didn't quite understand this and this, and there'll be a few questions, or it'll be, yes, it was great. And then they're kind of teeing you up and baiting you to talk about the product because they've heard all about the product that we offer. And what I find with that, that's automated, and that's pretty much the end of the automation from our perspective, because then that drives a conversation, which is where I think salespeople can thrive and salespeople can compete versus marketing, right? If marketing can do all this clever automation, well, typically salespeople are better at doing one-on-one engagements. I'm sure that's coming marketing further down the line of automation that's cleverer than what our salespeople can put together right now. But that is the goal here, to start driving conversations as opposed to having just massive automated cadences that we hope pop out a customer at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a fan of, massive automation for, this just a general subset of people. I totally agree with you that, and I would say like the inner salesperson in me wanted to jump on and create another workflow when you were like, I got X 50% of the webinar, the content from the webinar, and I'll jump on the next one for the remaining question. The salesperson in me wanted to do like sales automation in there and say like, what did you miss? Mm-hmm. And, can I send you a blog article that Will put together last week? It touches on exactly what, your questions are, or like that type of personalization. Because as a salesperson, I'm a big fan of like, let me give you the articles and let me give you the potential homework that if you are interested, you'll read the blog article, you'll download the white paper, or you'll, take that action because you told me you wanted to learn more. So, that's an example. The salesperson in me just wanted to kind of jump in there. I was like, I could do so much more automation on that statement.
Well, HubSpots are the kings of inbound, right? And content. Kings and queens, champions, however framing it up, absolutely just killing the game with content. Are you spoiled at HubSpot to be able to say pretty much any question you get inbound in from a sales lead, you can say, here's my thoughts. Here's also an article, a video, a post. Are you guys spoiled for that? Because it seems like whenever I share stuff, it seems to come from HubSpot somewhere along the line, even when I'm selling my own products.
So I would say absolutely yes. And that's something that HubSpot did, 2008 when it started to creating really helpful content for who we were selling to, who we were helping, right? It was back then, it was the marketer. So I did sales at HubSpot in 2010, 2011, and I also went in person. And every marketing team that I either had a meeting with or saw, like I would walk by their desk and I would see like a HubSpot blog or a HubSpot infographic. And back then, not a lot of people knew what we did. They were like, oh, we've heard of HubSpot before, but that I don't really know what you guys do. But wow, your content is helpful. It helped me get a seat at the table with my VP of sales, said the VP of marketing. So yeah. And then, I would say another quick, like little, I guess, fortunate situation we're in is if we're on the phone with a prospect and they ask us a question, we may not know the answer. If we Google it real quick, chances are our great marketing team or someone has created a pretty cool article about it that we can send.
So that's great for the 20, 30 people who are watching this who work at HubSpot, right? What about everyone else? Is it fine to share let's assume we're not selling a competing service to HubSpot, right? Let's make that assumption. Is it fine to send a HubSpot article, like a relevant one to what we're talking about? Does the salesperson, is the value in them creating their own content? Or is that a waste of time for salespeople? Should we be pestering our own marketing team to be creating relevant content? What would you suggest to a salesperson listening to this, a quote-carrying, bag-carrying salesperson who goes, well, I don't have access to the content that HubSpot has directly to just kind of send out when questions are asked?
Absolutely. I don't think it needs to be your own company created content or HubSpot created content, right? Like prior to HubSpot, I started a marketing agency, and HubSpot's free tool, the website grader, was the number one way I acquired customers. That was me being a not HubSpot person leveraging HubSpot's content. Fast forward to 2021, there's so many companies out there who have created great content, who are their own domain experts. As a salesperson, I would borrow the expert all the time in helping my prospect solve a problem. I would just say, make sure you read the article and make sure you've qualified the article and you've qualified the source, because again, I'm sure we could talk a lot, but there's so much content out there today. It wasn't like HubSpot back in 2010 when people were just starting to create content. So absolutely, to your question, Will, borrow someone else's content, because someone else may be better at that domain expertise or have better domain knowledge than you do. And I think great salespeople are really creative.
For sure. And there's a layer that you can add in there as well of your email. If you say, look at, it's more difficult with a blog. It's probably, tell me, you might know this. There might be a tool that does this of, you can send a link via a tool that will highlight parts of the article that goes out, like you would with a book. If that doesn't exist, it should exist, because that'd be great for salespeople.
Yeah,
but
I think and then you can see. Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, yeah, it exists. I don't know if that like one piece of like highlighting the content exists, but I agree with you, it should. The other piece is, as a salesperson today, you could see if the article you sent was clicked on, or the video was watched, or it was read. That's kind of cool too.
Do you do anything along those lines of sales enablement and tracking content, what works, what doesn't from a sales perspective? Do you factor any of that into how qualified a lead is? Or let me ask you this from a different perspective. Is a sales qualified lead at HubSpot a sales qualified lead, or do you have a scale of how qualified that individual is?
We have different types. And I think we use the salesperson to decide what type is most important to them. So like, yes, we have a scale, but I would say, as kind of being a salesperson and speaking to salespeople, I think you're the best judge of like what type of QL is really worth it to you, right? So for me, when I was selling, I loved the pricing page. So someone viewed the pricing page. To me, that was a notification that I really wanted as a salesperson. I could pick up the phone and say, hey, I saw you viewed the pricing page. And then the prospect on the other end would be kind of like, whoa, how'd you know that? But we have a bunch of different ones. There's contact sales we talked about, raising their hand in the product to say, I want to speak to a salesperson. There's a demo request. So many product-led growth companies today have a free trial or a free product, so a whole free SKU. That's cool. A hand raise, we call them. Someone who speaks on with our chat team. So the whole concept of a BDR or an SDR. Now we also have, and a lot of companies have like chat consultants, and like, can your chat person facilitate the how qualified the lead is and then pass it along to your closer? So there's just all these different types that have evolved. And then bringing it back to the salesperson, I think you're the best judge of, what type what type of QL comes your way, and your selling style, you can kind of match with the type of QL you get.
For sure. Okay, so let's run through what we've been through so far. We've got, assuming hopefully a hotshot marketing team, if not a pretty good marketing team, they understand the point of the fact of qualifying the people coming into the event. So we're getting majority of people somewhat qualified to purchase a product or be involved in the buying process somewhat. We've passed that on for a marketing qualified lead. We're now a sales qualified lead. Is there anything that salespeople can do post-event, post-nurture, conversation starts, whether that's been via email or chat or whatever it is, a phone call? Is there anything that salespeople can do to leverage the fact that these individuals have consumed content in a live event or a live webinar setting? Is there any questions we should be asking to leverage that fact? Because clearly, well, maybe it's not clear. I assume that someone who's attended a full day or 2-day event is going to be a hotter prospect than someone who's downloaded one white paper. Is there anything that we can do to leverage the fact that they've been kind of surrounded by us at an event?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I would say on the concept of like engagement from the event is like sort of what I'd want to get out of my prospect. And then the intellectual curiosity I have as a salesperson, combine those two to say, okay, I'm curious, like you just spent a day out of your time. What pain point were you trying to solve? And then there's two different kinds of pain, right? There's personal pain and business pain of the prospect. So that from an intellectual curiosity perspective as a salesperson, measuring engagement, it's like what did you like the most out of the event? Or what did you learn? Or were you there trying to solve a personal or business pain point? And like, did it happen for you? Because I think some of those questions could lead to a really interesting answer that then you can take as an additional piece of context around, are they looking to buy the product or service, or can the product, or flip it a different way, can the product or service that I represent help them?
For sure. So the way we typically frame this up in all our content is the buyer will have the current reality that they're living in. They've got this future reality they're trying to get to, and hopefully our product can bridge them from one place to another. So if we've done this process, which I won't go through again because I've said it about 15 times, of qualifying at the top of essentially the funnel and getting the sales qualified lead at the end of it, at this point, we should have a pretty good idea that they've got one pain, they're trying to get to somewhere else. Our product can hopefully bridge them from one place to another. Is there any other questions that we could ask? I don't want to beat a dead horse here, in that I feel like the question you just posed then, Kim, was perfect. Sets up a sales conversation, sets up an opportunity for us to add value, share insights, and get that person to go from one place to another. Are there any other questions that we should ask, perhaps in that initial phone call, post-event, post-nurture, to really cement this idea that we know the attendee is on the right track. We're just we want to be there to guide you, to be your guide from kind of one place to another.
So I would probably, in that situation, the one we didn't talk about was almost like a going negative tactic. Was there anything that you were hoping to get that you didn't get? And then I would probably go.
Which would you prefer? Kim, you're on a call. Clearly, you're a pro at this, right? You're on a call. What would be the first question you'd ask with someone after the pleasantries? Would you go positive or would you go negative? Because I know we've had Chris Voss on the podcast a bunch of times. He wrote a book that blew up about negotiations, right? Never Split the Difference. And he talks about going negative, or his own spin on it, right?
Love that book, yeah.
Would you go that way, negative, or would you start positive? I feel like negative might be more effective, but maybe it's a more difficult question to ask.
I think it's about your selling style. And I think the best sellers are if they can be their own authentic self. My selling style would probably be, two positives. And if I wasn't kind of getting where I wanted to get in qualification, and like, am I, is this person opening up to me? Are they telling me their pain points? I would use going negative as maybe third. But I would say there are some great sellers that have been on my teams that go negative right from the get-go, and wow, are they effective? And sometimes listening in makes me a little uncomfortable in my chair. But if that's your style and it's effective, great. I probably would do two positives. It just in terms of like metrics and it making sense. I want to try it out.
Sure. I tend to go slightly neutral, positive, get a conversation going, make sure that the person doesn't think I'm too crazy, and then I'll go down that negative route. And we can reframe negative as like the challenger sale. So pushing to share insights, pushing to teach, and everything else that the challenger model kind of puts across. Being negative sounds like we'd be negative here. We're not really. We're just challenging the customer on their assumptions and hopefully opening an opportunity for us to add value to them. So
the one thing I would just say there real quick, Will, on
Sure.
the challenging side is, in my opinion, if trust is high, you can challenge. If trust is low, challenging might come across to, not land right.
I'll excuse my French, you come across like a bit of a dick if you don't have that trust, right? But
okay, you can say it.
But I feel like after an event, especially if it's branded, if it's our event, if they've had success, if they've wanted to get on a call with us after some nurture as well, and we've not totally put them off by this point, at that point, I feel like not all the time, but and obviously you can judge this as a feel thing. This is the art of sales, I guess, versus the science of it. But at that point, I would want to be accelerating the process because the buyer clearly, unless they just like chatting with everyone and they're just bored in the office, which is becoming increasingly less likely in the fact that their office is probably their kitchen table at the moment. They're probably looking for the pain points to be accelerated. Clearly, this is a feel thing, but is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's super fair to say.
Cool. All right, then. Anything that we've missed, Kim? Is there anything that you guys do at HubSpot which is particularly effective that we've not covered? Is there anything that you kind of want to double back on? Because I know this topic is just so timely for the audience at the moment.
I think we touched on it. I would maybe just say, like, personalization is key, right? Like, what does that person want to get from attending? Like, time, as you mentioned, I think, well, that's a great point. Like, now more than ever, I think we've realized our time is so valuable. So it's got to be like what you talk about with someone else has to be personal. Is it solving their personal pain or their business pain? Because no one has a ton of time to wait. And I'm not saying they had a ton of time to waste in the past, but I think we just realized, like, if you're sitting at your kitchen table, you're probably going to talk a little less than you did before and kind of try and get to the point, which.
For sure. And you give me your thoughts on this. The first email that goes out pre-webinar, it's been the same email. I think it's actually got a grammatical error in it. I'm a terrible speller, right? Okay writer once it's been edited, but terrible at spelling and grammar. And it's been the same email for 4 years now. And it's essentially, hey, looking forward to speaking with you on the webinar. In the meantime, what's your biggest problem? What do you think we can help with? What content should we create? And we get I've not checked in a while. I don't want to BS on the numbers, but about 30% reply rate to that. And it automatically just goes to a folder in my Gmail. It's a direct reply to myself. And then every quarter or so, I just go through, it takes a day, and we just go through every single one of them, have a tally chart and just kind of narrow down and see if there's a shift in the content that we should be creating. So we do it more for content marketing as opposed to selling. But is that something that marketers should be doing at the top end of all of this? Or is it something that salespeople should be doing kind of mid-funnel?
I mean, it sounds like you and I have a lot of, we would care about a lot of the same things from the selling perspective. I mean, I love that, right? It's one of the biggest questions, we asked early on was, what is your biggest challenge? And that answer really helped me as a salesperson spend time. So I think if you can pull that up to your marketing team, you'll probably qualify better. But I would say that's an innate, part of a salesperson's DNA, that they're so good at digging into pain. And yeah, if you can, bring that up to marketing, and marketing can facilitate that a little bit more at scale. Because again, you mentioned, Will, that sales is really great at one-on-one. I think you're creating a pretty good qualified process for yourself.
I'll put you on the spot here because I've never shared, it's never come in conversation, but I've never shared this before. So we've had literally thousands. I'm trying to visualize my inbox at the moment, the number next to the unread email number next to the folder. There must be like 2,000 or 3,000 replies, another couple of thousand that I've not been through yet. What do you think, Kim, is the most commented to the question of what's your biggest pain point in your B2B sales job? What do you think the biggest pain is for B2B sellers?
now you're putting me on the spot. I don't want to get it wrong, but I don't know. How do you qualify?
So I assumed it'd be qualifying, sales process, getting rejected. It's motivation by a massive long shot. It's salespeople's biggest pain point is motivation, and it's an open-ended question. So people, talk about motivation and framing up different ways. But yeah, that's the thing that we seem to be battling in the day that we're living in, the age that we're living in, is just pure lack of motivation for sellers.
Oh, now that you said that, I mean, it makes sense, and I think the empathetic side of us wants to try and help that. But yeah, I mean, if a salesperson gets 10 no's and 1 yes, and we've just been through a global pandemic for the last 14, 15 months, it was hard before. Imagine it now. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Well, there we go. Well, with that, I want you to tell us a little bit about Grow. I'm going to be speaking at the event as well, so I'll touch on that in a second. But it's next week as this show goes out. And I'll just be clear with the audience. We pre-record all the content, so we're kind of talking about this as if it's going to happen next week, but it's slightly earlier. But next week, Grow is happening, a HubSpot event. Tell us more about the event, Kim, and where we can find it as well.
Oh, I didn't put together the landing page.
Okay, I will talk about it. Grow, it's for, I'm talking about it. I'm doing an Ask Me Anything on podcasting for marketers. You'll be able to jump in there, ask me very literally any question, and whatever I can get away with without being told off by the organizers and HubSpot, I'll do my best to answer it. There's tons of other speakers there as well. I think there's like 20, 30 speakers. I think there's 4 or 5 keynotes. Unlimited networking, and if you just Google HubSpot and Grow, it'll come up, and we'll link it in the show notes to this episode over at salesman.org as well. Sorry, Kim, I feel like I threw that at you then unexpectedly.
That's all right. I can talk about it now. I have the landing page up.
Cool. Anything else you want to add to that?
I would just say to your point, there is amazing speakers at the Grow Europe. Scott Galloway, I follow. I am at his newsletter. Awesome. Hop in. We're talking about events. Johnny, their founder and CEO, is there. Yamini, our chief customer officer, wealth of knowledge. Oh, so many. Eric Hall, AWS, Google, Will, you. But anyways, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Amazing stuff. Well, I'll link to the event over in the show notes over at salesman.org. You'll find it anywhere. It's all over HubSpot's website, HubSpot.com. And if you just search HubSpot Grow, it'll be on there as well. And with that, Kim, I enjoyed chatting with you. I appreciate you being, and I've had this with everyone I've interviewed at HubSpot, open and honest about your own internal processes. That's really valuable for the audience. So with that, Kim, I want to thank you for your time, your insights, and for joining me on the Salesman Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Will.